Airman Cave Archives! Knowing and doing are two different things.
Hey, welcome back to Airman Cave Archives. Alright, so tonight I thought we'd take a look at something different because we've been talking about recruiting stories a lot. Air power. And what do I mean by air power? I mean by the Air Force being the most awesome air power in the world. Anyway, so I had a commander, Shogopal, Major, I think it was Major or Lieutenant Colonel, Major. And he was prior Army. Now, don't get me wrong, I loathe whenever I hear an Air Force member say Hooah. Because being from a predominantly Army family, that's the Army's Hooah. You know, Oorah is the Marines and all that good jazz. But anyway, you know, it's always been joked, you know, what's the Air Force thing, whatever, and, you know, we would say, hey, you know, whatever. And so, yeah, it kills me, it pains me. But it was awesome because this former Army officer comes in as our commander, and people found out that he was prior Army, and so they would always, you know, Hooah, sir, Hooah, 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 Hooah. And one day at the commander's call, he said, hey, I really appreciate that you guys are making me feel at home in regards to, you know, the Air Force being my new home. But, could you guys quit saying Hooah to me? Because I'm not Army anymore. I was, and I love, you know, where I came from and, you know, what they provided to me before I came over as an officer, but I am not Hooah anymore. And so if you want to, if you feel so inclined to say something to me, how about you say air power? Because that's what we are. We're air power. So air power, you know, something. And everybody's like, oh, okay. But it's funny because every time I would go on a deployment, be it Iraq, Afghanistan, wherever, oh my God, you know, Hooah, Hooah from the Air Force people. And so whenever I would deploy, I would always take that with me from his teachings as a former Army person or soldier and try and preach the gospel of air power. And I happened to be at a security forces checkpoint one time, and, you know, showed my ID, was getting ready to pull off from the ECP or entry control point. And the young airman said, Hooah, sir. And I was like, a couple cars behind me, and I was like, I gotta tell my story. So I told him about the commander and asking us to say air power instead of Hooah. And he was like, you know, I never thought about it that way. I just thought that we were trying to say that we were as hard as the Army. Like, hey, got it. That's cool. But can't we have our own thing instead of piggybacking? I mean, we did separate from them, right? And so why would you try and go back to saying something that's not who you are? It's in your roots, got it. But have your own thing. And so he was like, you know what? I never thought of that way. I will change. I will pass that on. And so anytime I had a work center, I would always jokingly, you know, I would tell them the story of Major Shogopal and about how air power was the thing to say versus Hooah. And oh man, at commander's calls, I always got the looks because it was so infectious. You would hear people, you know, the commander of the shirt would say something, and, you know, Hooah, 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 throughout the commander's call. It's like, air power. And I would just say it, and they'd all look at me like, who is this idiot? What is he saying air power for? I'm like, because that's what you are. Quit saying Hooah. But what was so cool, and I wish that I could have coined it, but I've seen this before. There's a poster that says air power when Hooah just isn't enough. no ding against the Army, again, because majority of my family is Army background. But yeah, there's a reason we, took off into the wild blue yonder. And so the next time you Air Force people, particularly, if you're in a commander's call and you hear some old grizzled wannabe G.I. Joe say Hooah, just kind of behind them, give them a little air power. If you would do that, that'd be swell. And kind of pass that along. Air power, it's the wave of the future. Actually, the Space Force is, but that's a whole nother episode. So, thanks for stopping by, and Air Power. We'll see you next time.
Airman Cave Archives! Knowing and doing are two different things.